Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Raja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Radha Shri Chaitanya Shri Giriraj Govardhan Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Nitai Gaura Prem Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Ya idam sumahat punyam Ya idam sumahat punyam Sadaya vahitapate Sadaya vahitapate Sravayek Yadvapi Sravayek Srinuvadyapi Ya idam sumahat punyam Sadaya vahitapate Sravayek Srinuvadyapi Ya idam sumayat Sadayek Sravayek Ya idam sumahat punyam Sadaya vahitapate Sravayek Srinuvadyapi Very great. Any person, any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to God. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to God. In the execution of devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu is especially stressed. This means that bhakti, or devotional service, begins by hearing and chanting about Vishnu. When we speak of Vishnu, we also refer to that which relates to Vishnu. In the Shiva Purana, Lord Shiva recommends Vishnu worship to be the topmost worship. Better than Vishnu worship is worship of the Vaishnava, or anything that is related to Vishnu. The fact is explained herein that hearing and chanting about a Vaishnava is as good as hearing and chanting about Vishnu. For Maitreya has explained that anyone who hears about Prithu Maharaj with attention also attains the planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. There is no duality between Vishnu and the Vaishnava, and this is called avyaya Jnana. A Vaishnava is as important as Vishnu, and therefore Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote in his Guru Astika, Sakshat dharit vena samasta shastre, uktastata bhavyata eva sadbi, kintu prabhuya priya eva tasya, bande guru shri. The spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor. This is acknowledged in all revealed scripture and is followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Aditya. The Supreme Vaishnava is the spiritual master, and he is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that sometimes Lord Chaitanya used to chant the names of the gopis. Some of the Lord's students tried to advise him to chant the name of Krishna instead. But upon hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry with his students. The controversy on this subject reached a point that after this incident, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas because he was not taken very seriously in his ashram. The point is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the names of the gopis, worship of the gopis, or the devotees of the Lord is as good as devotional service rendered directly to the Lord. It is also stated by the Lord himself that devotional service to his devotees is better than service offered directly to him. Sometimes a Sahaja class of devotees are interested only in Krishna's personal pastimes, to the exclusion of the activities of the devotees. This type of devotee is not a very high level, one who sees the devotee and the Lord on the same level as further. Yaidam sumahat punyam shradaya vitapatet shravayek shrinuyad vapi sapritopadavimiyat. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet that Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person who returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets. Yananjana Shilakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Slapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhaktaya Srimad Karambakana Swami Dinamine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhaktaya Guru Dasi Jaya Hare Krishna. we recite prayers to the Vaishnavas still, huh? Yeah. Don't know. I think my ears is blocked. You don't, yeah. Is this better? Thank you. We recite prayers to the Vaishnavas because by remembering their names, we invoke their blessings, which is such a powerful concept. By remembering the names of the Vaishnavas and reciting these mantras to them, we immediately petition their blessings. And maybe that's one of the overriding themes of this lecture or class, is that we have such direct access to blessings. We have such direct access to mercy. And it's so easy to forget that. To forget all the little big ways that our lives are receiving blessings. We're in the section of the Bhagavatam now, towards the end of King Prithu Maharaj's pastimes, where we are in what's called the what is it? Falastuti. I think bear with me. Burijan Prabhu mentions that it's called the Falastuti, or the verses that give you the fruit of what hearing the pastime brings to you. Basically, the blessings that come at the end to those who have listened to the pastime. And so in this verse, Maitreya Rishi is giving us this blessing. Maitreya Rishi, this great sage who thousands of years ago spoke the Bhagavatam, is personally today giving us this blessing in this verse. And the blessing is that anyone who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. And then, if you look at the word-for-word translation, it kind of actually stops there. And Prabhupada, he adds this, in case we just didn't get it. We didn't get what the verse said. And Prabhupada, he adds, in other words, such a person also returns to the Vaikuntha planets, back home, back to Godhead. And so, my first reflections on this verse was how the devotional path is so rich with blessings, but we tend to get caught in the everyday runnings of it. in the everyday difficulties of it, waking up, showering, if the water's not hot enough, if the borehole water is on, which thank God we even have borehole water, if the person next to you was snoring the whole night, if like so many things we get caught up with, if the person who was meant to do the service didn't pitch up, and your life is automatically complicated for the rest of the day. All these things come up, and we just seem, it's so easy, and I can see it with myself, to just lose sight of the blessings that are coming. And so here it is that Maitreya, the sage existing thousands of years, today is appearing in the pages of the Bhagavatam to personally bless us. And why is he blessing us? For most people, when you write something, then you put it out there and you want people to read it. And then you want people to say, oh, that was well written. That was so powerful. That was expressed so beautifully. You want to hear how well the writing is. That's why we have bestsellers. That's why we have exclusive books. But Maitreya Rishi is putting this in the Bhagavatam because he cares about the reader. He's not interested in how well his delivery was. Of course, he wants his delivery authentic. But he's caring about the reader and what the reader will get from the experience of hearing him. He wants to ensure that the people that he's speaking to are given the deepest and richest choice blessings, and therefore he is using 9 verses. 9 verses. So you will hear about this for 9 days. That 9 verses to give specific blessings to people who've heard about King Prithu. That's not just like a, by the way, take this. That's a deep meditation. He's meditating on how to bless his audience. And we see it that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he offers his obeisances to his audience. He thanks them for listening to his words. And so we see the mood of a Vaishnava writer is very different. It's very different because with the blessings that Maitreya is giving us, these blessings are there because he wants to empower us. He wants to empower us. Jai Shri Radha Radha ki jai. Oh, we're there already. He wants to empower us to be able to take the Shastra and have it be embedded in our lives. Madhurya was quoting a saying to me the other day, that empowered people empower others. The converse being, insecure people don't empower others. When we feel empowered in our service, when we feel empowered in whatever devotion that we're rendering, then we want to empower others in it. But when we feel insecure in our service, or whatever act we are performing for Krishna, then we don't want to empower others to do it. Then we need to keep it for ourselves. But empowered people empower others, and the Vaishnavas that we are listening to in the Bhagavatam are empowered people. And Maitreya Rishi is now offering that empowerment to us through these verses. And that empowerment that he is offering is that may you who read this verse attain the same destination that Prithu Maharaj attained. Now, through every verse in this chapter, I kept thinking, why is Prithu Maharaj so perfect? It really doesn't help me. Can we just have one struggle, please? And that now, when you see it, that this perfect person, because he is perfectly channeling the empowerment of Krishna, this perfect person achieves this perfect destination. And then guess what? Me, the imperfect person, reading it, thinking like, please give me a break here, show me some humanness, can get the same destination. Because I read it. Because I read about this perfect person. So, it's important for us to realize that while we're going through our day-to-day activities, the parampara and all the acharyas are out there rooting for us. They're rooting for us. Once we did this play, it was called The Journey of One Book. And in that journey, you had this new bhakta going on book distribution. And the bhakta leader kind of person threw them on the street, said, here's your prasadam, here's the books, go do it, kind of thing. And it was like, I don't know what to do here, so looked around, ate the prasadam, looked at the book, thought like, okay, I should do something, It goes forward to try to distribute the book, finally pulls up the courage, goes to the person and says nothing, goes to the second person and pretends they're asking for directions. Goes to the third person, tries to say something, the person just walks away, And in the background to this whole thing, you see our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, I think it was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and it was Lord Chaitanya, and I can't remember, there's one other person from the parampara, were there, and they're giving this, maybe it was Narada Muni, and they were giving this commentary as the book distributor was doing this. It's kind of like, okay, he's got up. He's moving to the person. He's almost there. He's going to ask them. He's going to say it. And they're like, okay, no, he left. And then it goes on again like that. And then finally someone takes the book. And they're so ecstatically excited. But this book distributor is just alone on the street. And yet all these personalities are there. They're there. They're blessing his actions. And we see it because people like Maitreya Rishi embedded within the Bhagavatam spiritual landmines. It's like you step into a landmine. If during war, they put landmines under the earth and then they cover them up. And so when the opposition walks through the field, if they step onto a landmine which they can't see, it blows up and you lose a leg or you die or something. So in a spiritual context, these acharyas have put these spiritual landmines in the field of the Shastra. And when we browse through them, even when we're falling asleep in the Bhagavatam class, even when we just managed to read one verse before we knocked off in the night, even when we read but we don't know what we read the same page 50 times and nothing is going through, even when we do all of that, we're just casually moving through the field of the Shastra. They explode. And they explode with blessings. So that random people can receive this blessing of Maitreya Muni. That's why he's put it in the Shastra. That's why he's placed it there. So we should always remember that the parampara are there rooting for us. And that if we change the tint of our glasses so that we can see the world in terms of the blessings we are receiving, it's a different vision. It's a different vision. So when Maitreya puts this verse in, Maitreya Muni puts this verse in, you'd have to wonder what was in his mind. What did he want to achieve by it? And one of the things is he wanted to the reader to achieve, one of the things he wanted to achieve in terms of, let's say this again. One of the things that he wanted is that the reader feels, I should read this again. And every time you read a chapter and there's like a falastuti at the end, you think I should have paid attention, huh? Because this falastuti comes and says okay, you read this, you'll go back to God. And he's like, wait, what was that again? So I always think, why they don't put it in the beginning? So then I knew in the first place I would have paid attention, But they put it in the end. Because one of the things is that, okay, I should go back and read it. I should go back and read it again. Because then maybe that blessing will fructify. Because what does it say in the text? One who reads with faith and determination. So, interestingly enough, the word for word says faith and great attention. And in the purport, Prabhupada is also using the word attention. So in this context, he's using the word determination and attention interchangeably. Which basically means it takes determination to be attentive. It's so easy for it to just like, you know, it's a long morning, you've been up early, it's cold, and you're sitting, and someone is there, and they're talking, and they're talking, and they're talking, and the words are just, washing over you. It's so easy. So it takes determination to pay attention, but it also takes intelligence, in the sense that not intelligence like I'm a sharply analyzed sort of intelligence to be focused, but intelligence to realize what will it take for me to pay attention. For me to be able to pay attention, if you always see me with a book, it's because I can't pay attention. I really can't. It's very hard for me to pay attention. So if I have a book and I have a verse in front of me and I can look back to it, maybe I'm paying attention. Or if I write something down, I'm paying attention. But that's me, and everybody has to find for themselves what is the way that can help them pay attention. Maybe you need the 15-minute nap before Bhagavatam class so you can pay attention, But Krishna, he's so, it's not easy. It's not easy to pay attention. It's not easy to concentrate. It's actually easier to speak than it is to listen. Because I have to hear what I'm saying because I haven't got a choice, But you don't have to hear what I'm saying, So it's harder to hear than to speak. But Prabhupada is saying that one who with great faith and determination, well, Maitreya Muni is saying, when they hear it, that the Vaikuntha planets are their destination. The other thing that comes up into our mind when we read these Falastutis, or maybe it's just me, it's like, is this an exaggeration? Like, okay, you go back to all they come, and it seems like so, like someone promising you a present. And it says, one day you will get this present, and it will be like this, and like that, and this will happen. And you're like, yeah. But tomorrow the present isn't there. And the next day the present isn't there. And the fifth day you see them, they're like, okay, but you're going to get another present. And you're like, okay. And so the truth is, the part of us don't believe it. We don't believe that by just having read Prithu Maharaj, we now become recipients to go back to Godhead. Oh yes, then there's the what do you call this? Mitigating circumstance, the fine print of like, they didn't say this lifetime. The fine print. Yes, the fine print's there. It's not saying this lifetime. But the truth is, to any day get a blessing from Maitreya Muni himself that says you can go back to God at whichever lifetime. I'd take it, wouldn't you? I'd take it. Like, sure, got that one. And so we're carrying these blessings. And that is our wealth. That is the only wealth we have. The only wealth we have is the blessings that the Vaishnavas have planted in the devotional service that we moan and groan and do sometimes, in the Shastra that we don't want to read sometimes, and then they explode in our faces and suddenly we got this blessing and we can keep it. But the only thing that's actually exaggerated really is our effort. The only thing that's exaggerated is our effort. We put a little bit of attention to read a few words on a page. And with that little bit of effort, the heart of the Vaishnava is so great that he exaggerates that effort and gives immense blessings. And don't we know that when a Vaishnava speaks, especially a Vaishnava of the caliber of Maitreya Muni, you think Krishna is not going to listen? It was Brahma, right? He said about Hiranyakashipu, not in the day, not in the night, not this way, not that way, not inside, not outside, not by man, not by... Yeah. And Krishna listened to Brahma. Brahma complicated his life. It's like, okay, now I must find a way through the spaghetti of Brahma's blessings, And find a way. Why? To uphold Brahma's word. He didn't want to just circumvent Brahma and say, demon, Hiranyakashipu is wreaking havoc in the world here, gotta kill him. It's kind of urgent, Prabhu. If I overstepped your words, it's kind of urgent. He's killing people. But Krishna doesn't. He protects Brahma's words. He holds the words of his Vaishnava because Brahma gave the boon and still is able to sort out Hiranyakashipu. And so when Maitreya Muni gives a boon, Krishna almost doesn't have a choice. He's going to have to let us go to Vaikuntha. He's going to have to because the Vaishnava has said. And that Vaishnava, when they're saying it, asking the question, why Maitreya Muni is embedding this blessing, is because his heart is overwhelming with compassion. He's thinking of us thousands of years later who are trying to look at the Bhagavatam thinking what's going on here, reading about Prithu Maharaj, reading about horse sacrifices, and it sounds far out, reading about him commanding the earth to bring forth the grains, and we just sounds like one sci-fi movie, And he's thinking about us, but with such a deep compassion. And that compassion that resides in the heart of Maitreya Muni, that compassion is purchasing Krishna. And all the devotional service that Maitreya Muni has ever performed, and we know that's a lot, because there's many verses in the Bhagavatam that goes Maitreya Uvacha. That's enough to know that he did a lot. What he did, I'm not fully certain everything he did, but with the amount of Maitreya Uvacha in the Bhagavatam, Uvacha means speak. So when we say Maitreya Uvacha, it means Maitreya is speaking this verse. So the amount of Maitreya Uvacha in the Bhagavatam that Krishna now is chosen as our holy scripture, you would say he's done a lot. So he has credit with Krishna. He has credit with Krishna. Enough, and not just physical credit, going ka-ching points because he did things 5 credits per verse or something. Because his service has purchased Krishna. And because he has that credit with Krishna, he can say, bless them. He can say, let them go to Vaikuntha. Because the compassion in his heart that he has to empower the people in this age, he has the ability to not, command Krishna is not the right word because the Vaishnava doesn't command, but elicit from Krishna. Please do this for them. And Krishna has to. He has to uphold the word of the Vaishnava. So, yet we take it so for granted that all these sages, they're residing in the books and that we can get to meet them in the pages. We take it for granted. Keshav Swami was speaking about the obstacles and blocks in our lives to reading. And he uses the acronym HABIT. H is because the knowledge is hard. You're not reading a bedtime story, someone gently putting you to sleep. You're listening, the material world is full of pain and suffering. Everything here is destined. You're listening to deep philosophy. You're listening to time measurements and the universal structure. And there's so many things, that are so far out. It's not like this nice story that we just switch on when you're watching a movie. So the knowledge is hard. The knowledge is hard also because it is challenging. It's challenging what we believe in life. The other obstacle we have in reading is the amount of knowledge. Bhagavatam itself, 18,000 verses. The CC, I think 11,000 or 9, one of the two. Lots and lots and lots and lots. And it's not even like you can read it and say it was read. Because every time you read it, it will be different, in terms of how you digest it. So the amount of the Shastra feels like, oh my God, can I do that? Then he says, be boring. That we may find the Shastra boring. And you know why? Because we have all those dopamine hit things, like Instagram reels. Tell me everything you need to say in 5 seconds. catch my attention, make me laugh, make me like not be mindfully present. It's doom scrolling. So I don't have to think anything but think right now. Yeah. So we have a culture that has now trained us that you need to get to the point quickly, build suspense, keep people's attention, use audio, use visual, and so therefore our capacity to just sit and be with Prabhupada's words when there's nothing like flashing in our eyes to catch our attention, it is reduced, terribly reduced. But I'll go to possible solutions, but habit. So I forgot what the I is. I'll tell you at some point. But T is time. We don't have the time. But don't we? We don't have 5 minutes to read one verse. 5 minutes? We don't have it? Really? Once a devotee went to my spiritual master and said that chanting was difficult because she was struggling to find time. Life was so complicated and she was really struggling to find time. There's so much of service, so many things happening. And then he said, oh wow, now you've become so advanced in your service that you don't have the time to chant Hare Krishna. Now, Rukmini, I'm thinking to myself now, you've been so advanced, in Krishna consciousness, you don't have the time to open the Bhagavatam. Is it that we don't have the time or that we don't want to? I was picking up, not even going halfway through, whatever. I was looking at this book and a Bhagavatam. I was taking out of... I was taking my Bhagavad Gita out and a thingy fell out. Oh, it's my other... A post-it, because I tend to do post-its. Fell out from somewhere. And the post-it was a quote by my Guru Maharaj, and it said, every time I open the Bhagavatam, my consciousness rises. So I wrote that quote, and after it I said, all you have to do is open the book, Rukmini. And I stuck it on the Bhagavatam. All you have to do is just open the book. Do you know how many times I didn't? No. So there are blocks to us wanting to connect with the Shastra. And we have to encounter which is the block that I'm dealing with right now. If it's hard, it's okay. You don't have to understand all of it. And you don't have to understand all of it now. If it's a lot, that's okay. You just need to do one verse. It doesn't matter if you don't get the full context. And you can, tell me all the 500 sages that appear in every page, like in all the pages. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay if you're just going to get one thing that you remember. And that's also a really nice practice when you're sitting in a Bhagavatam class. Just think, okay, what's the one thing I take away from this verse? One thing. And even if you forget it for the next 5 hours or you forget it for the next 10 days, it's okay. Oh, I was inattention. Yeah, that was the thing. I was inattention. It's hard to be attentive. It's fine if you're not attentive. At least be there. At least be with the Shastra. And then the other one was, okay, it's boring. Fine, but give it a chance. Just give it a chance. Let the Shastra sit with you long enough to speak to you. It's like you embark with a relationship, you got to give the person a little bit of time. Not like, okay, I saw them from the other side of the temple room, they look boring. You got to give them some time. So, and exactly, time. Okay, I just give it 5 minutes. I can even set my timer and say at 5 minutes, even if I'm in the middle of one sentence, I'm stopping. That's okay. But that 5 minutes will build. If you read, and this is what I realized, we've been doing the Bhagavad Gita midday class, and it's now been 2 years. 2 years, yeah? And they finished the Bhagavad Gita. I'm like, whoa, 2 years. If for 2 years I give 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes to read one verse in purport, I would have finished the Bhagavad Gita. Like, that's wow. I mean, that's like your Vaisheshika thing, right? Be a sage page by page. You know? It's 5 minutes. And who can say they don't have 5 minutes? Do you want to? Do we want to meet the sages in the Shastra who have embedded the landmines that will explode and give us the blessings that we can carry? Because if you don't put that spiritual knowledge in, guess what? The space doesn't remain empty. It's being filled with all other thoughts, all other ideas, all other desires. They just come and they flow in. So when we're not listening to the Bhagavatam, we are listening to somebody else's philosophy. And that philosophy may or may not be good for us. So that's our choice. That's our choice. Now in this verse, which I'm wondering if I even got to the purport. But Prabhupada is saying in the purport that he's emphasizing the importance of hearing. And we see that in the Bhagavad Gita, it's saying if you hear the words, if you explain the words, if you read the words, all of it gives these blessings. But we see it in the Bhagavad Gita, especially in chapter 7, in the first text, when Krishna is saying, Maya Shakta Mana Partha Yoga Yundra Madhushraya Samsayam Samagramam Yatha Jignashi Takshino. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. What is the process of knowing Krishna? We hear about Krishna. By hearing about Krishna, we know Krishna. And we begin to know Krishna. And in the purport, Sri Prabhupada quotes a series of verses that go into the Bhagavatam, which is breaking down the scientific process of what happens when we hear. What is happening in the mind, in the heart, in the journey of the soul when they hear about Krishna. And it says, Prabhupada says in the purport where he's summarizing the translation of these verses, which are beautiful to hear, but we're running out of time. In the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, he says, Prabhupada says, to hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita itself, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as the best wishing friend and purifies a devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Krishna himself, residing in our heart, chooses to cleanse it when we hear. In this way, a devotee naturally develops transcendental knowledge, dormant transcendental knowledge. And as he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord. So we can notice Krishna is cleansing the heart. We hear, we're developing shraddha, faith. We associate with people who are speaking, sadhu sangha. And then what's happening? Krishna in the heart, he is cleansing the heart, anartha nivritti. And then we become, Prabhupada is saying here, as he hears more, he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord, nishta. And by development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance. Wow! What it must be like to be free from the modes of passion and ignorance. Can we even imagine what it must be like to be free from the modes of passion and ignorance? Once I came to my spiritual master with some issue, and he told me, Do you see how the modes are working on you? Do you see how the modes of passion and ignorance are working on you? And I'm just like, I was so gobsmacked. Just what response do you say? And he said, do you see? No, I still don't see. I don't fully see. But can you imagine what it must be like not to have those chains, those mental chains dragging us back all the time? And so we become freed from the modes, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, and this is of course Anartha continuing, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, nishta, becomes enlivened in devotional service, ruchi, and understands the science of God perfectly. So if you want to know who God is perfectly, you can know it at our Shakti and at Bhav. But we can begin by hearing, Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of understanding the supreme absolute truth. So there Krishna is giving us the benefits of how the process of hearing is like a domino effect, initiating all these other things in our lives. And the last point that I'll make is that when there's no taste for hearing, then the rest of this purport focuses on that the Vaishnava, the worship of the Vaishnava is the same, or put on the same level as the worship of Vishnu. And this is especially the pure Vaishnava. And so therefore, if we have no taste for hearing, then shushusho shadanavasya. One needs to serve the Vaishnavas, because by doing so, the taste to hear will come. And therefore, we take into account that when we are reading about the Vaishnavas in the Shastra, like King Prithu, like Srila Prabhupada, we are reading Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, that's also Bhagavatam. They asked Srila Prabhupada, is Joan of Arc in the Bhagavatam? And Srila Prabhupada said, who? And was she a devotee? And the devotee said, she had devotional sentiments. He said, yes, she's the Bhagavatam. And so therefore, Prabhupada Lilamrita is also Bhagavatam, because it gives us access to the Vaishnava, and hearing about them, then those spiritual landmines of blessings can explode. I'm going to stop here. If there's any thoughts or comments, we'll take it for a minute. Otherwise, we're good. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande.